Safe Space Incident. It was a Tuesday morning when Hogwarts experienced what would later be referred to in hushed whispers as the Great Safe Space Violation of 1992. Harry was minding their own business, trying to finish their Transfiguration essay on the ethical implications of turning animals into furniture, when Hermione burst into the common room looking like she'd witnessed a war crime. Harry. Rummed. Emergency. Someone has violated the marginalized student's safe space, she shrieked, waving what appeared to be a handwritten manifesto above her head. The common room went dead silent. Even the fire seemed to stop crackling out of respect for the gravity of the situation. What happened? Harry asked, though they weren't entirely sure they wanted to know. Someone, Hermione said, her voice trembling with righteous fury, left a note in the safe space that said, and I quote, "Maybe some of you should try being normal for once." Rama dropped his copy of Wizarding While Muslim, A Guide to Navigating Magical Islamophobia, and gasped audibly. Subhanallah? That's literally violence. It's worse than violence, Hermione declared. It's attempted psychological genocide of our entire community. Harry blinked. It's, what now? Don't you understand the severity of this? Hermione demanded. The safe space was specifically designated as a refuge for students who don't conform to heteronormative, cisnormative, white supremacist magical standards. Someone infiltrated our sanctuary and left a message designed to invalidate our very existence. Where exactly is this safe space? Harry asked, realizing they'd somehow missed this development. The abandoned classroom on the 3rd floor, Ramad explained. We petitioned Dumbledore for a dedicated space where marginalized students could process their trauma without fear of further marginalization. And he agreed to that. Well, Hermione said, looking slightly embarrassed, technically he said we could use any available space for constructive dialogue, but we interpreted that as formal approval for a designated safe space. So you just claimed a random classroom? We didn't claim it, Harry. We liberated it from the oppressive educational industrial complex. Before Harry could ask what the hell an educational industrial complex was, Professor McGonagall appeared in the common room entrance looking like she'd aged 10 years since breakfast. Miss Granger, Mr. Alwaziri, Mr. Potter, she said in a tone that suggested she was barely holding on to her sanity, I need you to come with me immediately. There's been an incident. They followed McGonagall through the corridors, where they encountered a scene that could only be described as absolute chaos. Professor Snape was standing outside the 3rd floor classroom, looking like he wanted to hex everyone in sight, while Dumbledore paced back and forth muttering something about restorative justice circles. Yo, what the hell is all this about? Snape demanded as they approached. I got bitches coming up to me talking about some safe space bullshit, acting like somebody got murdered up in here. McGonagall winced visibly at his language, but as usual, nobody dared correct him. Professor Snape, Hermione said stiffly, someone violated our safe space with hate speech. This is a serious matter that requires immediate investigation and consequences for the perpetrator. Hold up, Snape said, raising his hands. You telling me you got the whole school in an uproar because somebody left you a mean note? It wasn't just a mean note. Ramad protested. It was a targeted attack on our identities. Snape stared at him for a long moment. Brew, are you serious right now? You got me out here dealing with this kindergarten drama because your feelings got hurt. Professor Snape, McGonagall interjected quickly, perhaps we could discuss this more diplomatically. Nah, fuck that, Snape replied. These kids need to hear some real talk. You can't be running around claiming random classrooms as your personal therapy centers and then getting all pressed when somebody tells you to act normal. That's victim blaming. Hermione shrieked. That's common sense. Snape shot back. You'll want to know what a real safe space is? It's your damn dormitory. It's your friend group. It's anywhere you make it by being confident in who you are, not by putting up signs telling everybody else how they got to act around you. Dumbledore, who had been observing this exchange with the expression of a man watching his life's work crumble, finally spoke up. Perhaps we should form a circle and discuss our feelings about this incident. Absolutely not, McGonagall said firmly. I think a sharing circle would be very beneficial, Hermione insisted. We need to process the trauma of this violation and work together to ensure it never happens again. What trauma? Snape demanded. Somebody wrote you a note. They didn't curse you, they didn't hex you, they didn't even call you names directly. They just suggested you try being normal. The violence of that suggestion, Hermione began. Girl, shut the hell up with that violence shit, Snape interrupted. You keep using that word like it means something. Violence is when somebody punches you in the face. Violence is when somebody curses your ass. Violence is not when somebody hurts your feelings with a piece of paper. Language, Professor Snape. McGonagall said sharply. My bad, Professor. Violence is when somebody punches you in the face, not when somebody hurts your delicate-ass feelings with a piece of paper. Harry, who had been watching this exchange with growing fascination, finally spoke up. Can I see the note? Hermione clutched the paper to her chest protectively. Harry, reading it again would be re-traumatizing for all of us. I think I can handle it. Reluctantly, Hermione handed over the note. Harry read it, then read it again, then looked up at the assembled group. This just says that maybe some of you should try being normal for once. That's it. That's it. Ramad repeated incredulously. Harry, that's a direct attack on our identities as marginalized individuals. It's 7 words on a piece of parchment. 7 words that invalidate our entire existence. How do 7 words invalidate your existence? Because, Hermione said, her voice rising to lecture pitch, the concept of normal is a social construct designed to marginalize anyone who doesn't conform to dominant cultural paradigms. By suggesting we should be a normal, this person is engaging in psychological violence against our authentic selves. Harry stared at her. Hermione, do you listen to yourself when you talk? What's that supposed to mean? I mean, you just used the phrase psychological violence to describe a note that told you to try being normal. Don't you think that's maybe a tiny bit of an overreaction? The corridor went silent except for the sound of Snape trying not to laugh. Harry, Hermione said slowly, I cannot believe you're minimizing our trauma right now. What trauma? You found a mildly rude note. It's not about the note, Harry. It's about what the note represents. It's about the systematic oppression that forces marginalized individuals to hide their authentic selves. Or, Snape interjected, it's about some kid getting tired of listening to your complain all the time and writing you a note telling you to chill the fuck out. Professor Snape. McGonagall snapped. Professor McGonagall, with all due respect, these kids are acting like somebody declared war on them because they got trolled. Back in my day, we handled this shit by either ignoring it or finding whoever wrote it and hexing their ass. We can't resolve conflict through violence. Hermione protested. But you can resolve it by claiming random classrooms and demanding the whole school investigate your hurt feelings. That's completely different. Time. Because we the victims here. Victims of what? Bad handwriting. Harry could see this was going nowhere fast. Look, can we just figure out who wrote the note and ask them not to do it again? It's not that simple, Harry, Ramad said seriously. This incident has revealed a deep undercurrent of intolerance within the Hogwarts community. We need systematic change, not just individual accountability. What kind of systematic change? McGonagall asked, sounding like she already regretted asking. Hermione pulled out what appeared to be a pre-prepared list. First, mandatory sensitivity training for all students and staff. Second, official recognition of our safe space with formal protections. Third, a bias incident reporting system with serious consequences for perpetrators. Fourth, diversity and inclusion requirements for all classes. Fifth. Hold up, Snape interrupted. You had this list already written? Well, yes, we've been preparing for potential incidents like this. So you were waiting for somebody to give you an excuse to demand all this shit? Hermione looked indignant. We were being proactive about creating a more inclusive environment. Nah, you were looking for a reason to make everybody else's life more complicated. That's a very cynical interpretation. That's the correct interpretation, because I know your type. You create problems so you can solve them and feel important. My type. Hermione's voice went dangerously high. What exactly is my type, Professor? Snape grinned, and Harry suddenly realized they were about to witness something spectacular. Your type is the kind of person who thinks the world revolves around your feelings, who turns every minor inconvenience into a social justice crusade, and who can't go 5 minutes without reminding everybody how oppressed you are. The silence that followed was so complete that Harry could hear their own heartbeat. That, Hermione said slowly, is the most offensive thing anyone has ever said to me. Good, Snape replied. Maybe now you'll understand what actual offensive shit sounds like instead of getting triggered by random notes. I'm reporting this conversation to the Board of Governors. Go ahead. Tell them a black professor told you to stop being so down sensitive. I'm sure that'll go over real well. And that's when Harry realized the true genius of Professor Snape's position. He could say literally anything, no matter how politically incorrect, and nobody could call him out on it without looking racist. It was like having a permanent get-out-of-jail-free card for social interactions. Dumbledore, who had been watching this exchange with the expression of a man watching his career implode in real time, finally stepped forward. Perhaps, he said carefully, we could find a compromise that addresses everyone's concerns while maintaining the educational environment we all value. What kind of compromise? McGonagall asked suspiciously. Well, I was thinking we could, that is to say, maybe we should possibly consider forming a committee to study the issue. Everyone stared at him. A committee, Harry repeated flatly. Yes. A diverse, inclusive committee with representatives from all affected parties. We could call it the Hogwarts Harmony and Understanding Committee. No, McGonagall said immediately. The Inter-Student Relations Advisory Board. Absolutely not. The Safe Space Security Task Force. Albus, no. But Hermione's eyes had lit up like Christmas morning. Actually, Professor Dumbledore, I think a committee is an excellent idea. We could meet weekly to discuss incidents, develop policies, and ensure that Hogwarts becomes a truly inclusive environment. Over my dead body, Snape muttered. Professor Snape, as a faculty member, you'd be required to participate, Dumbledore said hopefully. Like hell I would. It would be mandatory for all department heads. Snape's face went through several interesting color changes. You're telling me I got to sit in meetings listening to these kids complain about their feelings. It would be educational for everyone involved. Professor Dumbledore, I will quit before I sit through one meeting about safe spaces and hurt feelings. Now, Severus, let's not be hasty. I'm dead serious. You make me join this committee, and I'm walking out that door and never coming back. Harry watched this exchange with growing amusement. They'd never seen Professor Snape look genuinely panicked before. But think of the children. Hermione protested. Think of all the marginalized students who need your support. I support them by teaching them potions, not by listening to them whine about their problems. That's exactly the kind of attitude that necessitates sensitivity training. And that's exactly the kind of bullshit that makes me want to transfer to Durmstrang. Professor Snape, McGonagall said sharply. You cannot threaten to quit every time students request accommodations. What, me? And with that, Professor Snape turned on his heel and stalked away, leaving behind a group of people who looked like they'd just witnessed a natural disaster. Well, Dumbledore said after a long pause, that could have gone better. This is exactly why we need systematic change, Hermione said triumphantly. Professor Snape's reaction proves that unconscious bias is rampant among the faculty. Or, Harry said quietly, it proves that maybe, just maybe, you're taking this whole thing a bit too seriously. Hermione turned to stare at them. Harry Potter, I cannot believe you're siding with the oppressors right now. I'm not siding with anyone. I'm just saying that maybe turning a stupid note into a federal case isn't the best use of everyone's time. A federal case? Harry, this is about basic human dignity. It's about 7 words on a piece of paper. Those 7 words represent. Oh my God, Hermione, shut up. Harry exploded. Just you shut up for 5 seconds and listen to yourself. You found a note that said, try being normal, and you're acting like someone declared war on you. You demanded investigations and committees and sensitivity training because someone suggested you tone it down a little. Do you not see how completely insane that is? The corridor went silent again. Even Rumard looked shocked. Harry, Hermione said in a small voice, I thought you understood what it was like to be different. I do understand what it's like to be different, Harry replied. But I also understand the difference between actual discrimination and someone telling you your behavior is annoying. So you think we're annoying? Harry looked at their friend, really looked at her, and saw someone who had become so wrapped up in being a victim that she couldn't see how exhausting she'd become for everyone around her. Hermione, they said gently, I think you've forgotten how to exist without being oppressed by something. And with that, Harry turned and walked away, leaving behind a group of people who suddenly had a lot to think about. The safe space incident, as it came to be known, was never officially resolved. No committee was formed, no policies were changed, and no one was ever punished for writing the note. Life at Hogwarts continued much as it had before, except that the abandoned third-floor classroom remained abandoned, and Hermione started keeping her social justice lectures to under 10 minutes. As for Professor Snape, he never did join any committees, but he did start ending his classes with what he called real talk sessions, where he dispensed life advice that was equal parts offensive and surprisingly effective. Listen up, kids, he would say, the world don't owe you shit. Nobody's gonna accommodate your feelings, nobody's gonna create safe spaces for you, and nobody's gonna care about your trauma unless you make them care by being excellent at something that matters. So stop worrying about what other people think about you and start worrying about whether you're the kind of person worth thinking about. It wasn't exactly the message Dumbledore had hoped for, but somehow it seemed to work.